Hello, good morning, and welcome to the Comix Experience Graphic Novel of the Month Club for the month of May 2022. We've got a really interesting book this month. It's kind of different than a lot of the books that we do, mostly because, a lot of time we're using genre fiction, and one of the genres that we don't actually get to do a lot because not very many people do this as a genre is its romance. And the thing that I particularly like about this is that it's a romance book from the perspective of middle-aged people. Again, not something that you normally see. Traditionally, when it's romance, it's always 20-somethings and blah, 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 blah. So the book is Walk Me to the Corner, and I am very happy that we have our guest here, ANELLI FURMARK. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Excellent.
Nice
Welcome to the show.
Thanks, thank you.
Yeah, you're in Sweden, right?
Yes, I'm actually in Stockholm at the moment.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. We're in San Francisco, so
Oh,
yay! International show, love it.
yes, it is.
So my first question is always the same on this. I ask every cartoonist this: why comics? Of all of the different ways you could be expressing yourself, what is it about comics that speaks to you as an artist?
Well, I started out as a visual artist. I painted and made some photography, but I think my main way of expressing myself has always been drawing. It's like the first thing. And then I was also writing things, but I never was really satisfied with what I was writing. And then at the moment I started to put together the writing and the drawings, and it was like, wow, comics, it was it was quite an I found something that I could relate to, because I knew how to write when I also could draw. So then I read a lot of comics, and I always liked the combination of drawings and text.
Yeah. So you didn't have any formal training in comics at all then?
No, not in comics. I was in fine arts department.
Okay.
At university. So I was going to be a fine artist, and no one was doing comics there actually. So I had to struggle a bit with the comics things, because it wasn't really accepted in the fine art business.
Yeah. Was this 20, 30 years ago that you were in school?
Yeah.
Okay. Just, I didn't want to assume. Some people go to school late,
That's exactly. 30 years ago, more likely.
Yeah. No, I mean, even in American schools, they certainly weren't teaching comics 30 years ago in schools, so.
No.
Yeah. What's the comic scene like currently in Sweden?
I think it's quite good.
Yeah.
I think I could say very good. I think it's there are a lot of good comic artists, and there is festivals and get-togethers, and there are a lot of female comic artists and interesting books, new books every year. So I think it's good.
Yeah. Do you have dedicated stores there or not?
So dedicated? What?
Dedicated to comics.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Not in my hometown actually, but in Stockholm and in Gothenburg and Malmö there are.
Yeah. Oh, very nice. Because the only thing that I really know about the comic scene in Sweden is I knew that you guys had a pretty big market for Disney comics.
Yeah, maybe, but I'm not really. I don't know so much about like mainstream comics.
No, sure. It's really like the only part that I ever retained.
I read them a lot when I was a child. I read all comics when I was a child. It was like in my 20s that I started to read like alternative or like comics for graphic novels and things. I didn't explore them until my 20s. So before that, it was like Tintin and Lucky Luke and things.
What's the first comic that stuck with you, that you remember and being engaged by?
Oh, you mean as a child, or you
well,
mean?
I mean, as an adult, probably.
Yeah, but
because certainly I read a lot of comics as a kid, but it wasn't until I was an adult that it was like,
no.
Wow,
But actually, there is comics by Tove Jansson, the Moomin comics. They have been very important from the beginning, like from when I first found them when I was a child, and they also stick to me still. I think they have been very, very inspiring to me. the comics. She was doing comics for some years, I think about 10 years or something, and but she was doing a lot of other things as well. But the comics are really good, and I was very influenced by them as a child, and also now as a grown-up.
Yeah. You mentioned alternative comics. Alternative comics.
Yeah.
Are you talking about American comics or European comics?
But it was like when I started to find the Swedish alternative comics, then, and I also got to know some people, and they say, well, you have to read this and you have to read this, and then I found the American comics as well, and the French ones, and so. But it started with the Swedish alternative ones in the late 80s and beginning of the 90s.
Yeah.
1990s, yeah.
Is there anything that we would know here in America that from Swedish alternative comics?
Well, you might know Liv Strömquist. You might know Liv Strömquist. I think you should know, maybe.
Not sure.
Now I should mention a lot of names, and I will feel ashamed because I forget them.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, they will come. They will come, I think.
Yeah. Not try to put you on the spot.
No, thanks.
So when did you actually start drawing comics yourself?
Well, I made some like panels, like comic, more like just one frame thing with a kind of a comment or something in the end of the 1980s, like when I was in art school, and then I made my first long, like a short story but longer comic when I was already finished my art studies. So I was quite a late starter. And my first book in Swedish was in 2002.
Okay. So it's been a good long while.
Yeah. So it's about
What's your approach when you start a story? Do you write it out first? Do you do thumbnails first? Like what's your mechanical process?
I think it is that I have an idea, and then I need to get started. And when I start, it's like I have to have the feeling that it is real, that I'm not doing sketches, It's like, well, now it's the real thing. So I can start with like 10 pages, and I try to make them as good as possible. But quite often I have to start from the beginning again because the characters are not right, and and I need other settings and things. But I kind of like the feeling that I'm not really doing any script before I start, and sometimes not even sketches, except for character sketches. But I like the way of jumping into it. So I make like one page, and I put it aside, and another page, and I put it aside, and then I go on like that. And I don't know what will happen in the end of the book, and so almost never.
Really? Okay. Yeah. Even for something like this, which is 200 plus pages.
Yeah, but that was kind of different because in that case, I made shorter chapters. I made parts of it.
Okay.
And because it was like, well, I don't know how to tell the story and how the book will end and things, but I know certain parts of it. So I like draw all the parts that I knew, and then I had kind of like 10 or I don't know really how many, and then I started to put them together. So this is going to be the first one, and then this one will come, and so. But the idea of drawing what I know, and to have some kind of confidence that the rest will show up during the way. I think that's my method.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really exhausting method, but sometimes I think it's good because it's not boring. if I had a script, I think it would be more heavy work. Like,
Yeah, yeah. It's fascinating to me because, you know, I talk to a lot of cartoonists. We're
oh,
close to 300 interviews at this point,
okay.
and everybody works differently, right? Like
Yeah.
there are people who can't draw one panel until they've written the entire thing out, like a
Yeah, I know that.
screenplay, you know.
Yes.
And then there's other people like you who are basically making it up as they go along. And
Yeah.
I love that give and take, you know, because that's
Yes.
not really how other media work, it seems to me.
No, and that's actually sometimes I think it would be a very good idea to have a script first, because then I would sleep better at nights, and I would, you know, I wouldn't have this process going on in my head all the time. I could like go to work and today I do these pages, and you know, but when I have this way of working that I'm not really sure what will happen, then I process it like for a year or 1.5 until the book is finished, and then I'm exhausted. Like,
Yeah.
so I think maybe the script way would be good to try.
Well, you made a book of a lot of insight and a lot of humanity here. So
Oh, thanks.
whatever way you're working, it works very well, I think.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
So you said that you did sort of individual chapters that weren't even necessarily in chronological order.
No.
Were you doing those with the idea that this was going to be a book? Were you doing them? Were you like publishing those shorter chapters in some fashion, or just doing it for yourself?
Yeah, the thing was that I had made some. I use a lot of sketchbooks, so I have a sketchbook with me kind of all the time, and also have made some notes, like text notes, and then I showed them to a good friend of mine who always kind of have an eye for what I'm doing, sometimes better than I have. And she said, I said, could this be a book? And she said, this can be a book, you know. It's like, because I wasn't sure, to be honest, because the topic was a bit complicated to me. But she said, well, this is a book, just start. And then I had the feeling that, okay, I'll make it to a book, and I can decide later if I want to publish it or not. But when I've been working for it like in a year, and after a year, then I was more confident with publishing it. So
Sure.
yeah.
Do you it's fascinating to me because, you know, I feel like a lot of times artists aren't making work unless they already have a home for it, you know, at least among most of the cartoonists in America.
Yeah.
And the idea that you were doing this without necessarily knowing what it was going to be or where it would end up fascinates me a lot. Is that traditional for the way that you work?
No, actually not. This one I wasn't certain, you know. It was more of a challenge for me, because the other books have been more like I had a grip of the story and some idea of how it's going to end and what's going to happen, but this was more of a challenge. So it's not usual for my it kind of pops out a bit in my works.
Yeah. Interesting. Let me just remind anybody who's watching at home, if you have any questions, put them in the comments there, and we'll try to get them asked for you as well as the show goes on. But until we start seeing stuff, I'm going to keep talking. So where did the germs of the idea from this come from? Is this completely fictional? Did you know someone in your life? Did you have this experience in your life? What's the gist of it?
Yeah, in the beginning, I was more scared of talking about the fictional or non-fictional things. But now it's like I found a way to talk about it. It's actually both. It's non-fictional and it's fictional, because in the moment you start you start to do a fiction. But of course, the story has some relevance in my own life. It has.
Yeah. The the part that kind of intrigues me the most is the long-term relationship.
Yeah.
Where they've been in love for decades,
Yes.
right? And then she meets someone new, and it changes everything.
Yes.
I guess my question would be, and again, you don't feel like you have to answer this, but
Okay.
how much of that part of it was not fiction?
Well, quite a lot was not fiction.
Okay. Yeah, because as I sort of said in the introduction, so many of the romance stories that we see tend to be about people in their 20s, maybe in their 30s at the most. It's always young love and new love and that kind of a thing. But an older love is a very different thing. Because it has a foundation. It lasts. It means something a little differently.
There was someone I talked with about the book. Someone in an interview, I think it was, who said, "Is this? I find this book. It's not like about one love story. It's about two love stories," and I think that's very, very true. It is. I wanted it that way. So that's yeah, I think it's, and also there is a part, I don't know if you remember, there is a part of the book where the main character Elisa is talking to her son, and they are talking about the facts that the young love is always the real one, and if there are any older lovers in a play or in a film, they are always like the funny ones or something.
Right.
And I really wanted to write about that because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Elisa in the book, she says, I guess this is Shakespeare. I don't know if it is Shakespeare, but there's like a beautiful couple and a funny couple in a way. And they discuss it like the main character says in the book that when you get to the older love experience, you find it almost the same, like when you were young.
Yeah.
With all the fears and passion and
stuff. Though it strikes me that it's probably scarier than young love because when you're young and you fall in love, everything is new. Do you know what I mean? Like all of your experiences are new and are fresh, but when something like that happens when you're older, it seems to me that the way that it changes everything is much scarier.
In a way, it's scarier, but in another way, it's not, because, like in the book, Elisa and her husband, they've already raised the kids and they've had this journey with the family and the housing and everything. And it's like, when you're 20, you don't know if that will happen to you.
Sure.
And or 25 or something. It's like it can happen, but it can also not happen, which I found very scary when I was really young. So I could think that in later ages you can think that it's in a way more secure, but also, like you say, very scary because it's so much at risk.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure it's more secure. I mean, I again, this is coming from the perspective of an American.
It's fun to talk about, I think.
And in America, it strikes me that families have a lot less security, perhaps, than you do in Europe.
Yeah, but I think that would be true.
Yeah, and so the idea that, for example, maybe I'll lose the home that I've lived in for the last 20 years, is terrifying. I think, even on top of the emotion of love, right? The emotion of love is scary enough.
Actually, that's interesting because I haven't thought about that perspective. But there is an economic perspective in it too. It is, of course, it is, and there is a hint of it in a hint. I don't know if you say hint. There is a small part of it in the book when Elise is worried about the economy, but it's not the main problem. And I think a lot of divorces, for example, they happen because they can happen.
Yeah.
If it's impossible for a house or for a job or to support yourself, then I think you will just stick to it, even if it's not what you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
So of course there is an economic aspect to it too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I wonder too about the gender part of it. Is it more acceptable in Europe for a homosexual relationship will it be accepted? Because in huge parts of America it would not be. I mean, San Francisco, obviously, I live in San Francisco.
Okay, of course.
It's very accepted and very normal here. But like if you're in Oklahoma or something like that, that's going to be a giant bit of tension.
Yes, and that makes me very sad. And I know also that we are living in like a safe bubble here in Sweden and in Northern European countries, I think. But a huge part of the world it's impossible,
Yeah.
But I kind of had an idea that I would make it as normal as that. You wouldn't even really think about the fact that it was two women. The main issue is the breaking up and the new love and the romance and the passion.
Yeah.
It's not the gay thing. It's I didn't mean it like that it should be a big issue in the book.
Sure.
But I'm sure that it is for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it makes me angry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope I could like plant a little seed of the normality of it, or it's not like it's really difficult to break up whenever in your life, but also after a long marriage, and it's difficult to meet someone new, but the difficulties should not be which gender you fall in love with. So
no, I agree. It's certainly it's in America it has changed over the last, let's say, 20 years, where it is much less of an issue than it would have been 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Partly because of depictions in the media, and partly because, as gay people, you start to recognize they're not any different than any other person, which is a really stupid thing to say out loud, because of course they're not any different. People are people, but but certainly, outside of San Francisco, in places in America, no one knew gay people, right? And then when they realize that they do, it changes how they think about them, which I think is really important.
They probably do know gay people.
Yeah.
But,
no, absolutely, absolutely. But they're not open, right?
Then that's the point. Absolutely.
Yeah. Is this also the case in Sweden, that has it become more normalized over time?
Yes, of course it has. Yeah. It's kind of open. It's very open, actually. Yeah. I think it's in special communities, like religious communities, and also maybe, I think very traditional and religious communities, it's still a big problem. So I will not neglect the problem for a lot of people in Sweden too, but mostly I think it's kind of easy peasy.
Mhm.
No, it's not easy peasy, but it's accepted.
Yeah. I understand.
Yeah.
Um,
And we
yeah,
can build
no,
families, and we can marry and adopt
yeah,
children, or have your own children as well. It's like it's the rights are it's we have the same family rights, like heterosexual married
yeah,
couples. So
yeah. That's did this happen after the European Union or before the European Union? I don't know.
well, I don't really know.
Okay. Well, great. No, I mean it's
Well,
good. That means it's even more
someone
acceptable, I guess.
should tell me. I think the marital law or something was, I should say, in the 90s, in
Yeah.
the
Okay.
mid 90s or something.
Yeah.
But I guess now I am guessing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's relatively new in the United States.
Yes. Hmm.
So
I think
and
Sweden was quite early, and also Denmark was before Sweden, but
right.
with the marital rights.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you said you started doing chapters. What was the first like where did you start your first chapter from? At what point
Yeah,
in the
I think
story?
actually the first chapter is the one I started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the one when Elisa sits in a sofa and watch TV, and she's kind of a little bit, yeah. She has some kind of feeling, and then she gets a text message, and she
Yeah.
starts to think, "What if it's Dagmar?"
Yeah.
And then that's and after a while you find out it is Dagmar, and then the book starts with the meeting of Dagmar and Elise. So I think the two first chapters are like the first one I did.
I see. Okay.
Would we have a look on one of the pictures? Or
Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Hold on one
yeah.
second, Ben. Will you put that up? There we go.
Yeah, this is from a sketchbook actually, but it was also then published. I made another version of this one, which is in the book. So,
Very
so this
nice.
is a winter walk in a Swedish town.
Yeah.
We can have another one.
Yeah. Next. Yeah.
Yeah, this is when Elisa is. They decide. Elisa and Dagmar decide that they should meet, and they take a train. And Elisa takes a train because they don't live in the same town. They live quite far from each other, and then she meets Dagmar at the station.
Yeah.
So.
Next one. Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is when Elisa is like recognizing, or they decided to meet. So I wanted to express something that you have the feeling that a lot of things is happening.
Yeah.
She doesn't know yet that this is life changing, but she has like a feeling for it. So, and that's
Yeah. No, I think that comes across very well in the panel too. I feel that.
Okay.
Put the next one up.
Yeah. Yeah, here is actually it's Elisa and her husband in a car in a landscape, and they discuss, because Elisa is open very quickly what happened. So here they are like driving and discussing what they will do, how they will make it.
Next, Ben.
Yeah, here it says in Swedish something. I don't remember the English translation now, but it's like Elisa's friends and maybe family too has told her how strong she are, and she has this kind of irritated feeling that, okay, but what if you're not strong? Because she doesn't feel like she's strong.
Yeah.
What if you're like weak and stupid? So this is like what will happen to a person who is weak and stupid?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I don't know what strong is actually.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's fair. Next
Yeah.
one. That's it.
I think that's the last one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. Um, uh, do you work? Um, do you do the ink, the black line first, and like at what point do you start adding the color? I guess is the question.
Yes. Well, I almost start with the color is the first thing. So I start with some watercolor, just to get a feeling that the paper is already, I started with the painting, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise I would get scared of the paper in a way. So the first layer is watercolor,
Interesting.
and then I draw the ink lines on the watercolor, and then I
Interesting.
use also crayons, like color
Uh-huh.
pencils.
Uh-huh.
And the speech bubbles, they are cleansed afterwards, like edited, so because otherwise you would see the watercolor in the speech bubbles as well. So,
Sure.
there's kind of some work, some after work with it to make the speech bubbles white. So, but mainly number one is the watercolor.
That's fascinating to me that you're starting with a tonal color before you've actually drawn the scene.
Yeah, I think it's
Because
because I started with painting. I'm a painter from the start. So
are you making a decision on the color based on what you think that the emotion of the scene is going to be, or are
yeah.
you?
I should say, I think I've also said that I think it's intuition. Yeah, it's
Mhm,
more, it's very direct. But
mhm,
when you put it like that, I realize that's what I do too. I have a color feeling for the scene,
uh-huh.
and I use. It's not like an intellectual thing that it's like, well, now it's very cold, so I think I will use the blue ones. It's
Yeah.
more, what color should I use for this scene? Well, it's a green one, and then I use the green. So
Interesting.
yeah,
Wow. That's a fascinating way of approaching work. I've never heard of anyone doing the color first. I've done, like I said, close to 300 interviews, and no one has ever said the color comes first. I love that in a way
yeah,
that I can't even express.
mm.
What do you do on, like, I'm just going to grab a page at
Yeah,
random
do.
here. So like here's a page at random where you can see that it at the top of the page it's blue,
Yeah,
and then it's yellow at the bottom of the page.
yeah.
Did you do these panel by panel, or did you do the page blue with yellow on the bottom? Does that make sense as a question?
Yes, I start as you said, with blue and yellow on the bottom.
Okay. And
Mm.
and how did you know that that was going to work until you've drawn? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, actually, I don't know, but I think I use my I use my I like to paint. I like to paint landscapes, and I really like colors. So I think I
Yeah.
use just my lust for painting. So
Yeah.
it's like, well, now it's too much blue. I take some yellow as well. So,
I
and then it
see.
will work.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But um, it's not it's not like a script thing.
I understand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you had a situation where you started putting down the tonal colors, and then as you developed the scene you went, this isn't working, the color isn't working?
Yeah, a lot of times.
Okay.
Yeah,
like
that's
like a
kind of
like like a lot of times, or a small amount of times?
no, quite a lot of times.
Okay.
I think this is not a very effective way to work, because sometimes, like I said in the beginning, I had to like redraw like 20 pages because
Yeah.
something was wrong.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I think the drawings, I struggle more with the drawings than with the painting.
Yeah.
The painting is more like, "Ooh, okay, yeah," and the drawings are. I think it's quite really difficult to draw. I think I struggle a lot, like I sweat with the perspectives and vehicles and
Yeah.
you know, squares and rooms and things. I think it's not easy.
Yeah.
But the drawing, the colors, I don't really struggle with them in the
Uh-huh.
same way as I do with the drawings.
Yeah.
Does
I'm
that
just
make sense?
it makes a lot of sense. I'm just
Yeah.
again I am fascinated by that process.
Mm.
Because I can't even picture working that way in my head. Not that I draw comics myself, but
No.
I almost don't understand how it works, though it's very effective, and
Oh, thanks.
it's very powerful.
Yeah. But also,
Uh,
I must say the graphic designer made a good job with the speech bubbles and with the text, and they
yeah.
also the other editions, the French ones and the English ones. That's the same with them. Because the originals doesn't really look like the book.
Mm-hmm,
There are
mm-hmm,
more colors everywhere in
mm-hmm,
the book.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So okay, so when you're drawing out the color, you're clearly not like drawing out panel borders at that point,
Mhm.
right? You're
Mm.
just putting a layer of color. Then when you make the individual panels that are part of the page, are you whiting out the color
No,
or
if you see at one page where the one we saw where there is 6
Ben, do you want to pull
panels.
that back up again maybe?
Yeah.
It might be easier.
The one you showed me, the one you in the book.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, I was
I
going to
like
say
that one.
let's use that one as an
Yeah,
example.
this one is good. This one is
Yeah,
good
yeah.
because here I made like 3 panels first with watercolors.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay, I think it's edited afterwards a little bit, but there are 3 panels.
So you made the panels with the watercolor
Yeah.
first,
Yeah. Mm.
even though you weren't necessarily sure what was going in those panels.
Yeah. It
Wow.
sounds so crazy. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I've never heard anybody work that way.
Yeah.
And so for example, in the third panel, in the big panel,
Mm.
she's spotlit by
Yeah.
no stay with the yeah.
Yeah.
So she's spotlit there in the
Yeah.
center.
Yeah.
Is that somewhere where you went and you removed color or
No.
is that how you
No.
designed that page?
Actually, I knew that she was
Okay.
going to be spotlight.
Okay. Okay. Um
But it's not
did
like
you
perfect.
yeah.
See.
Yeah.
Mm.
I yeah, this blows me away. You can pull it back down, Ben. That's really a fascinating way to work. I kind of love it. There's pages that are in gray tones as well as opposed to color.
Mm.
You're working the same process then. You're doing the
Yeah,
the
but
like
yes.
that page is in grays.
Yeah, but mostly with like just black color or ink.
Yeah.
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 I like the way of using. I like to use watercolor a lot because when I was younger, I painted with oil colors and the acrylic paint and so, and it was like I was forced to do the decisions all the time, and when I work with the watercolor, it's like the paper and the paint make decisions for me that I can accept or not accept.
Yeah.
So that's it's freer. I like it more.
But when you work with watercolor, doesn't it change the actual texture of the paper?
No, I have good paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You should. Yeah, it's important.
Okay.
Yeah, good paper, like thick illustration paper.
Okay. Okay. So like board, basically.
Yeah, but board can have too glossy surface, so it has to have a little bit of a. I don't know how to say this in English.
Uh-huh.
The water or the color has to like sink into the
Yeah,
paper,
yeah. Needs
not
to be absorbed. Yeah,
absorbing.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, interesting. Interesting. I do actually have a question that was handed to me.
Yes.
This is from Pudrigo, who is one of our regular members. I'm
Okay.
going to read this out. So, given the fact that this story was developed out of chronological order, was the plant motif in the story originally, or was it something that appeared while working?
Sorry, which motif? The
The plant motif.
plant motif.
Yeah, what plant motif?
Plants. Well, it was. Does he mean or she mean the original, like the pictures of the plants, or pot plants, and
Yeah, that's what I'm not
yeah.
quite sure
Hmm.
what
Yeah,
he's
I know.
meaning.
At one moment, I know that it was really. I had I made it. I had the decision to. I really wanted to have a plant in in that scene. It's between Elisa and Henrik, and they have been talking.
Uh-huh.
She told him that she was had met a woman, and that she was in love, and they don't know what to say. And I had a big. I don't know the name of this, but in Swedish it's monstera, or in Latin a big
Okay.
pot plant.
Okay.
And I wanted the pot plant to be like a landscape, because they are sitting indoors, and they,
Right.
so there I use it like deliberately
Mm-hmm.
as
That makes sense to me.
yeah, it's like a bit of a complicated landscape,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
indoors. Mm.
Yeah. No, it
Is,
makes
is,
sense to me.
yeah, is that
I'll,
is that an answer?
yeah. I'll if he'll write again if
Yeah,
that
and there
didn't
is
answer
also
the.
chestnut trees in books as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's maybe not plants. I don't know. Yes, and
Yeah.
I know out some other plants as well.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. No one ever asked me about that before.
Well, people, that's the great thing about comics too, is people will
Yeah,
notice things that you didn't even notice that were you're doing.
well, that's
Uh,
interesting, I think.
and it's fun too when we talk about it, because you said that you use things like crayon, and now
Yeah,
that you said it, I can see it. I
you see the
didn't
crayon.
see it
Yeah,
before,
yeah,
but now I can literally, like I'm thinking like that page there with the
yeah.
blues. The blues are
Mm.
all very clearly crayons. There's
Yes,
even on her nose, there's a little teeny red mark from the crayon there,
yes. Yeah,
that clearly wasn't from the watercolor underneath. I love it.
mm, yeah,
It's fascinating to me.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
The thing
used
I really
a thick um, like bigger crayon pencils, or like color pencils that are
yeah,
thicker, because they are better. But you can really sharpen them, but they don't break. So I
yeah,
love
yeah,
them.
yeah. When you construct a page, so you've already said you start with the color and
Yeah.
making borders in the color.
Mm.
Um, how long does it take you from start to finish to do an individual page?
Yeah. Normally, I think I could make like 2 pages a day
Oh, okay.
during a work day,
Uh-huh.
because
Uh-huh.
with the waiting time, with for the paper to dry, and for the composition, and for the drawing, and so. But for a earlier book I had a short deadline, and I had to make 3 pages a day, and it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of impossible. It was actually too much work.
Mm.
So I should say 3 is not ideal. 2 pages a day I can work, but I'm happy if it's 1 page a day.
Yeah. And that includes the lettering,
Yeah,
and
the lettering,
yeah,
everything.
everything. Yeah.
Because
Okay.
I
Very
letter
nice.
it also at the same time, and I
Yeah.
think that is because I need the overview. If I
Yeah.
don't letter it, then I don't know what happens, because I don't have the script,
Yeah.
as you know. So
Yeah.
I really know I need to put out the papers and see what happens in them,
Yeah.
also with the text. So
Yeah.
I do everything at this. Like I finished one page, and then I make the other one.
Yeah. And are you, just so I understand the technical part of this, are you doing the word balloons like on separate pieces of paper and then pasting them onto the art, or?
No, I'm doing it on the I do everything on the same page.
Interesting.
Yes. I think it's old fashioned because I didn't know if I went to comic art school, I think I should have been working in another way, but now I just started this way. So, and I stick to it.
Yeah.
And I think, as you say, Ella, as I said before, I think it has to do with the overview. I need to see what I've been doing. Like,
Yeah. No, that is really, this is engrossing. Actually, I'm more interested in kind of the craft part of this now than I thought I was going to be.
Yeah.
Just because it's such an unusual way of working, but it works very well for you.
Thank you. I'm not sure I will work in the same way for the next book. I'm not sure, but yeah.
Yeah.
I also like I think that this book has kind of a sketchbook feeling, and I wanted it to be a sketchbook feeling in it.
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. In terms of the translation of the book, did you translate it yourself or not?
No, it's translated by Hanna Strömberg.
And then did you
English. No.
did you do the new lettering, the English lettering?
No.
Or okay.
No, they made it at Drawn and Quarterly.
Okay.
Very good one, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there is also a font of my lettering now.
Okay. It's interesting too, because there's places where it goes back and forth between sort of standard casing and then in cursive.
Yes, yeah, and the cursive one, there is I don't remember the name, I'm sorry, but she made a very good, I think it's she made a very good work with the lettering for that one. Yeah. And there are some pages, where there's a kind of painted lettering.
Yeah.
Like titles. Those I've made.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like chestnut.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
Fascinating. I love that. I really do. The other thing that really kind of struck me about the book, and don't take this the wrong way. Okay. So when we pick books, the whole staff kind of votes on what we're going to select for each month's selection. And my staff came to me and went, no, this is the book. And I went, okay. And I picked it up. I mean, because we had an advanced copy. I picked it up and I flipped through it and I went, wow, this really seems kind of static. I wasn't sure. And then I started reading it and I just got sucked right in. So, from a distance, I thought I'm not going to like this. But then when I started to read it, it really, really, really drew me in, and it really involved me in the characters' lives and in their emotions and the way that they feel. So that's, I think, a very large testament to your skill, ma'am. I really, it's a roundabout compliment, but I really, I feel that you. Yeah.
I really appreciate that. I'm really happy to hear that. I think it's fine.
Yeah. No,
because for me also the text part is really important. It is. Yeah. I can't really. There are no like I said before that I started as a painter, so it's like the picture comes first. But in comics, the wonderful thing with comics that it's like the mix or the dialogue between the text and the picture is like it's really important, and so the text is a big part of it.
Yeah. No, they have to really work in concert, because if they don't work in concert, then. Well, it's interesting because there are good examples of comics where they're in opposition to one another, the words and the pictures.
Yes,
and that's what makes it interesting. It's what I love about the form
Yeah,
And the
isn't it?
medium is that it doesn't have to be anything. It can be
No.
whatever you choose it to be,
Yeah,
as long as you're moving forward, you know?
exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes I work as a I have students I have classes
Mhm.
in comics, like
Mhm.
drawing something,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
often say that it's like uh, there is like nothing you cannot say in comics, but there are things that you can say like only in comics.
Yeah.
So for me, it's no, it's just I like it very much to
Yeah,
work
yeah.
and to read and yeah,
Yeah.
as an art form.
And so you teach comics as well.
Yeah, no, occasionally, like maybe a couple of months a year or
Uh-huh.
something,
Uh-huh.
if I put it all together, or
Yeah.
maybe not even that much, but some weeks here and there. Yeah.
Are you teaching comics specifically, or are you also teaching fine art, painting,
Well,
things like
this
that?
summer I will have a course in the fine arts department, and they actually really didn't want to call it comics because I
Mm.
said, "Well, I teach comics," and they say,
Mhm.
"No, no, no, we have to call it something else." Like,
Mm.
so it's called like drawing in the narrative field. So
Okay.
it's
All
more
right.
academic,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's comics, you know.
yeah. Yeah.
So
And when you're teaching your students, how many of them are coming into it who, like, their intention is to do comics, and how many of them are coming into it just to see what the potential for comics is?
yeah, I don't know the percents, but I had both the experiences of both
Yeah.
things. I've seen people who didn't really know that they were interested in comics,
Yeah.
and then we start, and then they kind of find a couple of times it's like, but this is what I'm going to do. So I have like a student who is a very good comic artist in Sweden now, and
Yeah.
uh, she was like, this is what I've been looking for. But other students say that, well, it was fun, but I go on to some other work. Or
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
But with a like a kind, maybe with a more interest in reading comics
Yeah.
after my class than
Sure.
before. Mm.
Sure. Sure. Sure.
Mm.
Do you uh, is most of your income coming from teaching, or is it coming from making comics and other art?
Yeah, it's a mix.
It's a
It's a
mix.
bit
Okay. Hmm.
teaching, also
Hmm.
selling paintings and
Oh,
sometimes
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
the books and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
illustrate. They do illustrations as well
Uh huh. Uh huh.
for
Like
other
spot illustrations, yeah. From
no for other writers. I mean, yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. Like magazine articles, that kind of thing, or like
Not
illustrated
so
books.
much.
Okay.
It could be more, but other books
Yeah, yeah,
for
yeah,
other writers.
yeah.
Mm.
So you were doing chapters of this,
Yeah.
and you finally realized that you had a book,
Mm.
encouragement of your friend.
Mm.
You
And
started
my
to put it.
editor as well. She was a
Okay.
big part of it
So
as
this
well.
was this was this
Actually,
was my question actually, is
yeah.
at what point did an editor get involved?
But she was important because we had kind of um, an idea about the book quite early, and then I worked along by myself, and I showed her some things when it was quite a lot already, quite many pages, and yeah, she was like, "Oh, just go ahead." And then when I had kind of all the chapters, we had a big meeting where we were together putting the book together. Just
Yeah.
like, what if this is the first?
Right.
What is if this part, like the part in the end? I don't know if you remember the amusement park.
Yeah.
I made it quite early, but we we just we just had this the same idea that let's
Yeah.
put it in the end, see what happens, and it was
Yeah.
like now it could never be somewhere else in the book.
Yeah.
So she was
Yeah.
Sophia Olsson. She was also a big part of it.
Yeah.
Mm.
But at the point that an editor is involved, you've been accepted to be published, yes?
Yes, yeah, I
Or
was. I was
okay,
already. Yeah.
okay.
Mm.
So what did you give them to show them that you actually had a book? If you see what I mean, like how
Yeah.
far into it were you that they were able to go, oh yes, we understand this is how this will be a 200-page book, I guess.
Well, I don't really remember. I think
Fair enough.
she trusted me in a way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, she trusted that the idea and some drawings. Yes, and now I remember. I was in their office because it's in Stockholm and I don't live in Stockholm. And I remember I had this suitcase with drawings, maybe 30 drawings or something. And I
Okay.
said, I explained the idea. This is
Yeah.
what it's going to be like, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe 30 or 40 drawings or something, or pages.
So pretty early in the process then.
Pretty, yes, pretty.
Yeah. Okay. That's like, again, that's pretty normal. I just wanted to make sure because of the unusual way that you work. I could see you going, no, it was it was something completely different. Yeah.
No. I think I am. I need the freedom.
Yeah.
But I'm also organized. When I start to work, it's like I go to work and I do my pages. So it's not like, well, today I don't feel like drawing anything. It's like when I'm in the process, I'm kind of 9-to-5 worker.
Yeah. Yeah. And how did it get picked up by Drawn and Quarterly?
It was my Swedish publisher, and I together with them I made the contact with an agent, and she
I see.
presented
Okay.
it to Drawn and Quarterly. And I have one earlier book at Drawn and Quarterly too, Red Winter.
Yeah. Just no, I was just curious as to what the process was. You know, had it been published in Sweden at that point?
Yes, it's published in Sweden at 2020 in the October 2020, and also in French the year after.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. How many different languages is it in at this point?
It's
3 or
it's 4. It's Swedish, English, French, and German.
Yeah.
But there are some other ones coming up. I can't really talk about them yet, but I think there are some other ones coming up.
Yeah.
But it's the first book in German, so also that's fun too.
Yeah. Do you speak German or French or read?
No, I can read a bit of both.
Okay.
And I can speak. I can make my way around a little bit in those 2 languages, but I can never discuss things and take part of interesting talks and so on. No, sorry, sadly enough. But I understand some words and some I get some feelings about the language.
What's the feeling like when you see something that you've created in a foreign edition that especially one that you don't read or understand? Like you couldn't take the German edition and make it yourself, right? Whereas I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like you probably could have made an English edition.
No,
Your English seems
I
to me to be
couldn't.
good enough.
No, I couldn't.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Because when I see the English edition and I see Hannah's translation and I say, well, that's the way to put it. I would never come up with that myself, So I think she's made a marvelous job. And I guess that's the thing with the French and the German edition as well. But the English one I can read, so I can see it's good. But I'm quite sure that the French one is good too. And I understand the sentences because I know what. If I see a speech bubble, I know what it says in Swedish, and I can see it in French, but I can't hear the tone. I don't know if the tone is right, and I just have to trust it. It is.
Yeah. Do you have conversations with your translators at any point?
Yeah, yes. I had with the French one and
Mhm.
Florence Isask, and also with the German one. I had a little bit. Yeah, they had questions.
Yeah,
There are some. I think there are some things that are they kind of typical Swedish things that they had to. I had to explain.
sure.
So. Mm.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, the use of idioms is very pervasive in any language. That,
Yeah.
words and sentences that I could say in American English wouldn't necessarily even translate into British English.
No,
You
I
know?
know, I know, and also my dialect is more northern than
Yeah.
Stockholm dialect, and
Yeah.
my French translator, she's living in the north of Sweden too, so I think she has a feeling also for like northern Swedish. So
Mm,
and also Hannah has, I think. Mm.
I understand. Wow. That's neat. That's neat.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Like I say, I'm just impressed. I mean, not only by the actual quality of the work, but all of this process that you've talked us through about making this is astonishing to me. I've
Oh, wow.
never heard anybody talk about making a comic in this particular fashion, and I love it. And
Thank
I
you.
love it so much. I have to say that it makes me feel like this book is even more special than I thought that it was gonna, that it was special. So yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Are you working on another full length book anytime soon? Do you have ideas? Do you have?
It's been kind of a little bit of silence after this book because
Mhm,
I was a bit exhausted after that one.
mhm,
But I've been working together with another writer, for, doing illustrations now
mhm,
for a while,
uh-huh.
and I trust that there will be something coming up
Okay.
quite soon
Okay.
for a full length book. But
Yeah.
it will not be about this person's, I think.
Sure.
It will be about other things, I think, I
Sure.
guess. Mm.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't expect to see a sequel to this necessarily.
No, someone asked me, well, if it was like a Netflix series, what would happen in the next season? And
Yeah.
I said, I think it was kind of, yeah, uh, my best idea that it was like Dagmar and Elise would be together and break up and be together and break up, and then everybody would be like bored.
Right.
So I don't think it's a sequel is a good idea on this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. No, the self-contained nature of it, I think, works really well. And yeah. And it really touched me. I mean, it really did.
Oh, that's fun.
It was really strong and really powerful. I wouldn't mind seeing an adaptation of this somewhere. Though
I wouldn't either.
I imagine at least like for something like a Netflix that they're probably not likely, just because again of the nature of that it's a romance with middle-aged people and
Yeah.
not young people. That's not, you don't see it,
Yeah, but you
Did
see it nowadays. You do actually.
yeah,
Like 10 years ago, you didn't see it,
yeah,
but now it started. I've
yeah,
seen it, and it makes me very happy. Also because I'm middle aged now. It's
yeah,
like, or
yeah,
even older. So it's
yeah,
like it starts. You can see it actually.
yeah,
It's not like totally wiped out like it
yeah,
was when I was young.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
things are changing
yeah. Well, that's
slowly, but
great.
yeah,
That's beautiful. All right. Well,
yeah.
so then let's wrap this up. And my last question is always the same in every interview, just like my first question is. As I mentioned to you, this is a series of
Yes,
interviews with cartoonists,
yeah,
and it's watched by a lot of people who want to make comics themselves, who have the interest in doing comics, but they don't necessarily know how to start, where to start. So, if you were to give a piece of advice to an aspiring cartoonist
mm,
about making comics and making cartoons, what would it be? And it can be something that is practical and craft based. It can be
yeah,
something that's kind of emotional,
yeah.
philosophical. Like,
Okay.
what would be your piece of advice to someone aspiring?
I should say get a sketchbook and not a very like fancy one, but a thin one that they're not heavy. You can carry it around wherever you go, and use the sketchbook. And also, the other thing I should say is like, if you don't know the story, it doesn't. You can still do the story. You can just draw the parts that you know. It's like start with what you know. So you don't have to have the whole plot or the like the dev how do you call it, like the storyboard or something. You don't have to know how the story ends. But if you know some things, you can start with them. And also carry a sketchbook and use it. I think that's my best advice.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And clearly it works for you. This is a process that you did it in that fashion, and that is so terrific. I really want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us about this.
It was really nice to talk to you.
Yeah. I really thought that this was just a fantastic book, and has a lot to say. Hold on one second while I do a bit of business. Put me on a 1, will you, Ben?
Yes.
Very good. Hey, so if you are sitting at home and you don't know what to read, and we're still in COVID times, so you probably do have some time to read a book. This is a really, really good book. This is a book you really want to read, and I recommend it very strongly. If you wanted to, you could buy it from us on our web store that Ben will probably put. Yep, he's going to put that up, and it comes with a book plate, which let me show that over here. It comes with a beautiful signed book plate, hand signed. So that's very cool as well. And then that's that. The next 2 interviews that we're doing for the Kids Club, we're interviewing Kat Ferrardo. I think that's how you pronounce her last name. And it's Miss Quincess. That's next month's kids book. And the next month's adult club will be Mamo or Mamo. I'm not quite sure if it's Mamo or Mamo, by Sass Millage. A beautiful, beautiful book. She's Australian, so we're going to continue our international theme here with international shows. And as I said, I want to thank everybody who's a member of the club. Really, it makes a tremendous difference in keeping the store going and in our mission to bring the best comics to everybody. I want to thank Ben, my son, for running the show and doing his thing. I want to thank Jordan for being my producer and dealing with all the backstage and behind the scenes stuff. That's fantastic. I want to thank my staff, Kat, Katie, and Zoe, for running the store and allowing me to sit in front of a camera and talk to people about comics, because I couldn't do it otherwise. And I want to thank people who make comics, like ANELLI here, for doing this, and because we wouldn't be able to have this or have a store that sells nothing but comics without people like you. So thank you so much for being here and for participating and for making such really passionate and touching work that really, I think, shows kind of the best of humanity, I would have to say.
Oh.
So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was really nice to be here.
Yeah. And we'll see everybody next month. Thank you for watching this episode of the Graphic Novel of the Month Club. If you enjoyed what you were watching, please subscribe and hit that bell up at the top corner. If you enjoyed the books that we're talking about and the creators that we're talking to, every month we pick a brand new book. Keep our store alive, and we'd love to have you as a member. You'll get a new